Okay, hello everyone. We're live for today's webinar. My name's Julie and I'm our community manager. I'm joined by Leo from Growth and Bianca from Product Marketing. Thanks for coming today, you guys.
Excited to be here.
Great, so we've got a lot of questions about growth and how Outschool grows, how Outschool markets ourselves and the teachers to help grow our base of learners and families. So we thought it would be great to get a couple of our team members on to talk more about what exactly we do, and especially since our team has grown recently, so it really helps to help you guys get to know everyone. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and share some quick slides for you. And before we get totally started, I want to say if there's anything that you can't see or anything that you can't hear, any other issues, please send that into our chat box. We also have a Q&A function if you have questions, and we'll handle all of our questions at the end if we don't answer them within the presentation itself. But feel free to just shoot those in anytime as they come up for you. And if you have any stories of your own that you want to share, anything that's worked well for you, you can also share that in the chat box and make sure that you send it to all attendees and panelists, so that way we can all see, and I can even read your answer out to share with the rest of the group as well. But let's go ahead and jump in and get started talking about Outschool's marketing, Outschool's growth, and some best practices for teachers. So let's kick it off with introductions from Bianca and Leo, and then we'll get into some of the specifics.
Hi everyone, hope you can hear me okay. I'm Bianca and I'm the product marketing lead here at Outschool, and I'm responsible for reaching new families and making them aware of Outschool as a resource for their learners.
Awesome. And my name is Leo and I work on growth. So my focus overall is just building product features that eventually lead to more users, both on the teacher side and on the parents and learners.
Great, thanks so much for sharing. And now I want to hand it over to Bianca to talk a little bit more about marketing at Outschool.
Yeah, so marketing is a very big term that could mean a lot of things, but it boils down to two things at Outschool is one, understanding our ideal customer and driving awareness to be able to reach those customers. So to do that, we do a lot of research in identifying when, where, and how we're going to reach those families. And we look at a lot of qualitative and quantitative data about trends that are happening on the platform, or trends and topics that families are interested in. And using that information, we're able to find different moments that we can be able to reach families and connect with them. So for example, seasonality. We've noticed that we noticed that August and January are really big months at Outschool, and so we looked closer to figure out why are so many families enrolling in classes in those months. And we see that a lot of families like to plan ahead and plan commitments in bulk so that they're able to have their schedules and semesters built out for the year so they can plan around that. So that's an example of us identifying trends. However, one size does not fit all, because while some families like to plan ahead, Outschool is growing and we're starting to reach other types of families. And there's going to be types who are sporadic or last minute on demand enrollers. So now we're trying to learn about other types of families too, so we can identify those moments as well and those trends. Other things at Outschool, I think we can go to the next slide, is once we kind of know those personas and who those people are, next is driving awareness and reaching them. So that's through a variety of different channels through marketing. And the best channels that we've seen are always word of mouth. Connecting with someone you know or hearing from someone you know will always be the most effective marketing channel. But we also need to drive awareness digitally and to other people who may not have that word of mouth. So that's through Facebook. Facebook has been where we started with marketing, and now we're starting to expand to other channels like YouTube, Instagram, Pinterest, and also press. We are working with PR team that hopefully get us on local TV stations and through blogs, and hoping to reach families telling those different stories.
Yeah, I thought that some of the press we've been getting has been really fun, like local stories with teachers. And then I put in a screenshot of our Forbes article because that's obviously my favorite one. But it's been great to work with the PR team. And then we have a couple of other folks we work with for ads and things like that too, right?
Yeah, so we're the in-house growth team amongst a few other people, but we work with PR team and performance marketing to help grow our paid advertising. The example of Forbes or these TV opportunities are really exciting because we've never done something like this before, and it's starting out by finding some teachers who have really interesting stories to share, teachers who posted about us on Instagram or share the stories in the communities, and we get organic interest from local stations or journalists and writers that immediately say, like, I'd like to learn more, I'd like to talk to them, and that's worked really well.
Awesome, thanks so much for sharing. And now let's pass over to Leo for a little bit of a growth overview.
Sure, thank you. And I guess like marketing isn't the only way that anything like necessarily grows, right? Like the other thing that you need to do is make sure that everything is set up in a way that like the product itself grows organically as well. So that's a lot of the stuff that we work on too, right? So we're identifying features that are, identifying features that are going to be leading to growth organically. And the way that we do this is by analyzing how current users are using our features, right? Like sometimes users are using things in a way that we don't necessarily intend, but we see that, hey, you know what, that's a much better idea. Let's actually build something so that the product works for that kind of use case. And there's other ways to do it too. We could do it through experimentation or just overall user research and reaching out to people and asking questions about like, how do you think this feature would work, right? Like, is it going to be useful to the needs that you have, et cetera, et cetera. And then outside of that is actually like, outside of the research itself is the implementation, right? Like making sure that we're working with, engineering and our customer experience team and I guess like other areas of the company to like make this all a cohesive product.
Yeah, I would say anything we can do on the product to reduce friction, the faster and easier it is for parents to find classes. So every day there's new bugs or things that we can do to reduce that friction.
Yeah, so some specifics, like we want to improve some things on search, and Leo's spearheading a lot of that. And then also referral programs, Leo spearheads those as well, and a bunch of other things, like Bianca said, that reduce friction. And maybe he's more of a behind the scenes guy, but he's great at finding ways for new users to get into classes more quickly and new teachers to get started more quickly as well. Great. Well, I want to pause before we move on and just again encourage anyone to ask questions about what we do here at Outschool in terms of marketing and growth. And also we're going to segue into some more tips for teachers. So if there's anything on that side that you want to ask about as well, go ahead and just drop any of your questions into the Q&A section. Or if you have your own experiences, again, just want to encourage you to share in the chat box. If you'd like to, we're totally open here and we'll be taking questions at the end. And I have some questions from people who weren't able to join live that we'll answer at the end as well. So let's hop in. Bianca, I think you want to talk about discoverability.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Outschool is always going to be doing the marketing through the channels, like I mentioned previously, to drive awareness. Things that we've noticed are when we're marketing through Facebook and there may be a single class on that Facebook ad, we see people join Outschool through one specific class page, but they actually go and explore all the other variety on the site. So making yourself as available and discoverable as possible is the best way of being matched with those families. And some tips that can make your profile or your class pages and profiles more discoverable is when you're writing your class descriptions and titles is really putting yourself in the parent's shoes. And I'm sure all of you are already really doing this, but when a parent is looking at hundreds of options, they're really only taking 5 seconds to glance and compare the classes. And those questions that they're asking themselves is, what is my learner going to take away from this? So if you can answer that in the first two sentences or even in the class title of what people are going to take away from your class, that's how you can capture their attention when they're searching. Also, schedule and availability is the biggest friction right now that families are having because they all have crazy different schedules. So when you're adding your classes, think about if you're able to match with families that are taking classes during the day or different families that may be taking classes on weekends or after school, because there will always be a variety of different families and learner types taking those classes.
Yeah, and I heard something, well, I saw on our Facebook group from one of our teachers, Adrienne Dillard, if you're out there, hi. And you had said sometimes you just have to play around with the times and see what works. And I think you used the metaphor of throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, because there's going to be a combination of audience, you know, who's looking for what at what time and what age and topics and everything. And that combination of factors, sometimes you just have to play around a little bit.
Also, the type of learner, who is this for? Because some families are looking for more advanced classes that are for kids that may are trying to advance certain skills, while other families have specific needs that they're trying to solve for, while there's other learners that are just interest-based. So being able to identify that in your first few sentences when you're describing your class of who this is for and what they'll get out of it, you'll match and resonate better with families, and they'll have a better experience because you're setting the right expectations. They won't be disappointed if your class didn't meet those descriptions, and they'll stay longer and enroll in other classes longer.
Yeah, I love that. I love thinking about a target audience and who is this class for, because I think a lot of classes appeal to a really wide audience, but when you say who it is, it really resonates with that person personally, and then it makes them more compelled to enroll.
Yeah, I can imagine it's hard when you're a teacher because you know that your class could work for anyone. You know, you would be able to accommodate any type of learner, but I think being able to write that in your first few sentences is that this class is great for learners who are just getting started with writing or who are falling behind in certain subjects. Parents see that and they'll realize that that's perfect for their learner. So answering those questions are very, very helpful.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing.
Sure. And I guess a segue to that, right, of making your class discoverable is also taking into account where each of these like classes could be exposed, you know, to parents. So these may show up on Facebook ads. These are going to show up on recommendations that they see on their emails, or they're going to show up if somebody's browsing the actual website, right? So like those are different things that you want to consider when writing those titles, right? Besides from like making them flashy and catchy and like different things that could be interesting to kids, right? Like, you know, referencing, you know, different video games or maybe like Pokemon or like different things that may be, I guess, like trending with kids. Like that's one set of things. And the other set of things is also making sure that like it's easy for parents to find if they're searching for specific keywords, right? Like, you know, if you were, just think, if you were a parent and you were trying to find this specific class, what keywords would you use? And make sure that you're using those keywords as you're describing your class, either in your title or in the short summary of it.
Also the photo and titles are the first thing that people see. And I think now that we're starting to get a lot more parents adding photos into reviews, there's opportunity for you to ask those parents for screenshots of those photos or other photos of the materials that come out of the class, because the more authentic and more real it shows the takeaway, or if it's a physical class like painting or different types of crafts, using those actual photos of the results capture the attention, because then it becomes real to the parent. They're able to learn, oh, my kid can do that. So I think just playing around with different photos and things can capture attention, and mixing it up for sure.
Awesome, super cool. Anything else you wanted to share on this, Leo?
Not on this one, but the next slide. So like, there's also things, I think like one of the things to like make sure that you're not ignoring is also growing via your existing customers as well, right? So like the key overall to growth is making sure that one, you're having new users, right? Or rather like new parents joining your classes. And then the second like really big piece is that the parents that have already taken classes with you continue taking classes with you, right? So that's another thing that you could also be focusing on. So like one of the things that we find is very successful with teachers that have, repeat customers is interaction within the class itself, right? So like, encouraging, learners to share their experiences, to like essentially like build rapport with one another during a live class, can do a lot to like build, community within the class, and then that essentially like encourages them to continue wanting to have those kind of experiences with you. And then that said, also like structuring your classes itself in a way that, parents can take other classes with you, like, maybe like making them in different sections to say, okay, if you've taken this class, the next one I recommend to take is, these others, right? So like essentially like build them so that it's more of a chain. And like, another pro tip, once you do that, is making sure that you're also making these parents and learners aware that like these other classes exist, right? So you don't want to come across too salesy during your, your actual classes, but, spending, a few seconds actually just like, mentioning to other learners, hey, by the way, like there are other classes that I have as well, if you're interested more about like, the specific topic that you're teaching. That's also a good move, just to make them aware that that is something that they could do.
Nice. Yeah, and I heard Aaron Potstick had mentioned that on a previous webinar, actually, referring to your classes, your future classes at the end of the current class. So, or you could do it naturally as well. So if a kid is saying, oh, I love Pokemon, but they're in your Harry Potter class, then you can say, well, I have a Pokemon class as well. Maybe I'll see you in there, but let's keep going with Harry Potter instead. And you can kind of build those segues a little more naturally rather than outright pitching at the end of class.
Yeah. And then something else that you can also use here, like from your existing classes, is like the different features that we have within the platform itself, right? So for instance, one that we've added recently is like pictures and reviews, right? So like we have seen that like for parents that show like a picture of like an example of like what parents can expect in class, that's going to be very helpful for other parents to like, I guess like be more willing to take that class, right? So like things that you could do to make like your class picture worthy, right? Like either, making learners create a project, right? And encouraging them to take pictures of it and then like post it in the review after, right? Like doing different things like that, I think could also be helpful in making sure that you're continuing to get enrollments.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. And before we move on to the next tips, again, just doing a plug for anything that you want to put in chat, anything you want to share with the group, feel free to. And if you have questions, please use that Q&A function and we'll answer them in just a few minutes here. So moving on to the next slide, pass it back to Bianca.
Yeah, so I mentioned it earlier, but word of mouth is definitely the most valuable form of marketing, because you, as a parent, or anyone who's trying a new product, you really don't trust it until you know someone else who has a good experience. And whether you know it or not, all teachers and learners and parents are our ambassadors, and you guys are the ones that are helping us spread the word and growing the marketplace. So getting your help by spreading that word is definitely a way of getting more users on the platform and hopefully into your classroom. Obviously, it's intimidating to be self-promoting, and I totally understand that. You don't want to be spamming your whole Twitter feed with every link to every class, but there are other ways to drive awareness and bring attention to Outschool and your classes, and that's just by sharing your story. Taking your family and your friends, whether it's just at dinners and talking, or if it's sharing through social media of how your teacher journey is going on Outschool and bringing people along for that journey, is a great way for people just to hear about what Outschool is and how it works for you, how it works for different learners, and hopefully they get curious and then they eventually sign up. And we really encourage that just because it's authentic and genuine, and you don't have to be promoting specific links or classes, but just being vocal about your teacher experience helps get the word out there, and hopefully someone tells someone and there is that network effect. If you are active on social media, always encourage teachers and families to tag us, because we're starting to get more active and resharing resharing different stories. And it's hard to just reshare single class images because there's not enough context. But for example, here on the slide, when there's a teacher sharing that they completed their first class or they got their 100th review, we're celebrating those moments. And those are things that we're all proud to share, and be happy to reshare those things as you guys start posting more in the teacher community or on social media as well. Is there anything else on social media you want to talk about?
I actually wanted to ask, because I see it come up in our teacher Facebook group pretty often, is what do you think of Facebook pages for teachers? You know, having like a teaching page, you know, this is teacher Caitlin or something like that.
Yeah, having teacher pages is a great way for families to stay in touch with the teacher and see what they're doing. I'm sure a lot of kids are curious if there's a teacher traveling a lot and always posting pictures of their travels around the world. Social media is a great place to stay up to date with families that are interested in following without having them add you personally. But Facebook pages for teachers are a great way for connecting with them, but I wouldn't necessarily say that's a way for you to advertise or put money behind classes, because Outschool is already doing that through our Facebook ads, and it'd be a shame to see a teacher spend money on an ad and not be able to reach those right people, because we're doing that ourselves already.
Totally. Thanks for sharing that, Bianca. All right, and then we have a tip from Leo. I really like this one. I think it's super underutilized. So can you tell us more?
Yeah, sure. So another pro tip that you can do is actually, we do have a couple of referral programs, right? I'm sure you've heard about the teacher one and obviously the parent one. But as a teacher, you can actually make use of the parent referral program. The way that it works is if anybody signs up for the first time using a link that you provide, they actually get $20 off of their first class, right? So like one of the things that you could mention is you could share a link to your class, right? And then use the parent referral program essentially as a bonus or as a coupon for parents to take that, you know, like for free if it's under that $20 mark, right? Or at least discounted. So that's another good way of, like, you know, for you to be able to convince other parents to look into your own classes, right? And obviously, like, that's a cost that you don't have to bear, right? That's as long as it is their first class, then it's something that we would provide.
Yeah, I've also seen teachers set some smaller, shorter introduction classes around that $20 price range, so that it's a good way to introduce new people into your learning path or an introduction to a certain subject. And I can imagine offering that $20 off is, you know, practically free for the parent to be able to try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And Astrid had made a comment in the chat actually that she likes to use the referral program to market her classes, advertise it as a way to take classes for free, like you said, Leo, since they can apply it to her class. And it's awesome because then she gets the $20 promo for her own kids. So if you have kids who are 18 or under, you could definitely use that credit yourself. But even if you don't, it still applies to that parent who's signing up. So you should just use it because there's nothing to lose. Mm-hmm. Great. Anything else on this one? All right. Well, now we're skipping into the questions portion. So we don't have anything in the Q&A right now. And I have a few questions that I just took from the Facebook thread and a couple of emails that I had earlier today. So I'll go ahead and share. We had already talked about ads and Facebook pages. Someone was actually asking about videos for you know, their classes or their profile, or, you know, getting their videos shared on our YouTube page, or if we do any marketing of their own videos. That's a lot of content, but I wanted to, if either of you want to comment on that. Bianca, I think you might have a couple of tips for videos.
Yeah, videos are new and relatively new, and we're starting to experiment with it, like I said, on new channels like YouTube. And I would say when a teacher's creating an introduction video to their profile or to a class, to keep that parent, think like a parent cap on, and answering those questions up front. So imagine if they're only watching the first 5 to 10 seconds of that video. You want to say, hi, I am Miss Bianca. I'm here to teach this subject, and this is what your kid will get out of it. And just answer that in those first 5-10 seconds, and hopefully you'll get them hooked. And you can then provide more context in the longer half of the video. But those first 5 to 10 seconds are what most people's attention spans are. So keep that in mind when creating your introduction videos. And then in terms of us sharing them, we're starting to grow our YouTube channel. For you guys to subscribe to it, and that's where we'll be posting this webinar video afterwards. And we hope to, as we get some more teacher videos of them sharing who they are and what they teach and why they teach, those are videos that are going up on our channel so that when new people hear about Outschool, they're able to watch and learn a little bit more.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. I think it would be great. You know, we were talking a little bit about posting to Instagram and sharing, or using your class listings to become more discoverable, and videos goes right in with that. Everything that you create for your Outschool classes or related to Outschool, we can help use and we can leverage that. So thank you in advance for doing that.
And you know, it doesn't have to, some people aren't savvy at editing videos, and the best way is just recording yourself telling your story, because you could have pictures and music, but the parent is just hoping to learn, how is my kid going to interact with this teacher? And I think an introduction video or a demonstration of how you're going to teach is the most effective way.
Great. Okay, well, we got a couple of questions in Q&A, so I'm going to skip into those before going back to the written ones that I received before. Astrid was asking if we've seen any feedback from parents who prefer the auto-scheduling feature rather than schedule requests. So, and we've also made some improvements to the auto-scheduling feature recently. Leo, I was wondering if you had heard anything from parents about this?
Yeah. So, I think most of what we hear from parents is that like they do have a preference for the auto scheduling feature, specifically just because like there's more, I guess, like confidence in what's actually going to happen, right? So for those of you that aren't familiar with this, the way that it works is if a parent doesn't see a section for your class that works with their schedule, then we have a few options, right? If the teacher has set availability in their profile, right, then the parent can actually create a section themselves by saying, request alternative times, right? If the teacher has not, set that their availability, then that same button would turn into request or create a schedule request, essentially, for the teacher, right? So from the parent's perspective, right, like if they're requesting another time, right, and there's availability set, like that automatically creates a section, and that there's a higher level of confidence that class is actually going to happen. If the teacher has not set availability and you request an additional time, then that's gonna flow over to the teacher. Then it's unclear whether or not like that time is going to work for that teacher, right? Like as soon as that happens, then there has to be some sort of communication to the parent back and say, hey, like there was a time created, at the time that you requested, a section created at the time that you requested. Are you still available at that time, right? So like there's just like too much friction and mismatch for schedule requests, right? It still happens, and there are like obviously like successful occurrences of this, but it ends up being a lot more successful if you do have your availability set via auto scheduling.
Cool. Yeah, and then you don't have to say, no, I'm not available, because it's just not there.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that, Leo, and thanks for asking, Astrid. And then Karen was asking if there's a reasonable way for teachers to see a list of all students previously taught with a link to their Outschool email address. Would love to do more to promote, and does this info exist already in some other format? And I don't believe that it does, but I was wondering if we had any ideas about, how people can reach their audiences more easily. I know that from our side, anyone who's already taken a class with you will automatically be following you as a teacher. So if you post any new classes, then they'll be notified that, hey, Karen has a new class, come and enroll, and we'll, put that in a digest for them. We'll put it in the weekly email as well if you're following. And same thing for sections. If a parent is going through and saving a class, or if they have submitted a schedule request, or if they have ever been enrolled in the class, they'll automatically save the class and then be notified when there's new sections of that. So we do a little bit of work automatically right now, but at the moment there's not a list that you can contact.
That's correct.
And then Jennifer was asking about adding pictures to her class listing. So just wanted to clarify for this one as well. If you're getting any photos in your reviews, you can definitely reach out to the parent and ask, hey, could I use this in my class image? And you can use that full image, or you can splice it in with another one. You can't put other images within your class listing unless you create a video. And then you could create a slideshow or stitch those in somewhere after you're done showing your face and voice and speaking. But that would be the way to add some more pictures to your class listing before parents enroll.
I've also seen teachers in baking classes or cooking classes, for example, take a picture of what that end result is with their own photography, and that way the photo is a bit more quality as well. Because sometimes if a parent leaves a picture of you, it might be may not be the best quality to have on your main image. But yeah, I think like if you're going to be painting or doing something crafts, that having a high quality photo of that is a good way of showing too.
For sure, it's awesome. Okay, and then going back to some of the written questions we got, we had someone asking about, as a team for marketing and growth, how do we do our planning? How often do we plan? Do we have certain cycles? Kind of a logistical question.
Yeah, we start planning annually. So now that it's already December, we're starting to think about what's the plans for 2020. And from there, we then focus on different sprints, and sometimes quarterly, sometimes every few months. So as we have this plan for 2020, we kind of work backwards and fill in our different experiments to fill out there. From a marketing perspective, looking at a calendar is definitely the most helpful thing, and seeing what are certain holidays or trends, and seeing how that compares to our activity and our parent activities. So we can look at the past year's data and plan around that.
Oh, awesome. Did you want to add anything there, Leah?
Nope, I think that covers
it. Great.
But I encourage, if you guys have any ideas or certain holidays or things that you think are worthwhile, we always welcome those suggestions. I'm personally excited for Earth Day. I hope to be doing something in April for Outschool then. Obviously, it's 3 or 4 months to start planning. I hope I can get ahead of it.
Yeah, and there's also, I think that teachers have already taken to that by creating specific classes for, MLK Day or certain months or, seasons and things like that. So that really helps.
That reminds me of Halloween. We saw just organically a bunch of teachers adding interesting fall and Halloween themed classes. So seeing that happening on our platform gave us the idea to start promoting it on social media, and ended up being a result of having coverage by some press articles, and some bloggers started commenting on how Outschool has these Halloween offers. So I'm excited to start coming up with more themes and seasonal moments like that.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks so much for sharing. And then speaking of seasons, someone just asked, is there a good volume of learners that enroll in the summertime?
Yeah, there are different types of families that are using things at different times of the year. So I think that's something to keep in mind, and we will continue to communicate that through the teacher community and emails. But also when you're creating your classes, just think, what type of the year is this? Are kids going to be in school? Or are they going to be traveling or off of school? And in the summer, there's definitely a different type of learner, because they're families that are just hoping to keep their kid in some structure of the day. If they don't have their normal classes in the summer, how can they add some schedule to their day so that there's something they are learning? They're not just watching YouTube, or if it's bad weather or something, they can come in. So yeah, summer is definitely a season that we're hoping to learn more about that type of family, so that we can market more for summer camps and things for kids to do during the day. But again, we still right now see those biggest peaks are planning their semester. So again, it'll be planning into the fall, planning into the spring, and then planning in the summer. So we're going to start sending you guys reminders to start adding summer classes around April, May as well.
Great. Thanks so much for that. And back to some of our written questions, we had one maybe for some of the more detail-oriented teachers who are looking a lot at their numbers. Is there a metric that an individual teacher might want to be tracking?
Yeah, so I think like this is really gonna depend on like what you want out of Outschool. But like for the most part, right, like growth, like I mentioned previously, it's all about two main things, right? One is making sure that you're getting new learners, and then the other is that the learners that you've had keep coming back to you, right? So like those are the things that you kind of want to make sure that you're tracking, right? Like are the parents that have previously purchased your classes continue purchasing your classes, right? And if they're not, right, like is there anything that you could do to make sure that happens, right? Like is it just that you're offering like one-time classes that don't really connect with one another, right? Like maybe it's a matter of like making sure that like your classes flow well, right? Or like you know or maybe you're even getting ideas from the learners themselves, or like other things that they're interested in that you're also qualified to teach. So it's doing a lot of those things.
Awesome. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Sometimes learners can get pretty attached to particular teachers. So if you have something else to offer them, then they'll keep coming back.
Yeah, I've seen teachers just sharing on social media, like, comparing their month-to-month stats and seeing how they're, and personally promoting how they're doing each month. And I think that's a way of tracking as well.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think we're out of questions at the moment, so we'll start wrapping up. If you have anything else, please put it in within the next couple of minutes. So your last chance, but not really your last chance, because
we hope to do more of these. Yeah,
yeah.
I think now that we're collecting all this information and synthesizing it, our goal is just to communicate this with everyone and these trends as much as possible, because if we know when families, if we can predict or estimate when families are going to be doing things, we'd love your guys' help on picking up on those trends. So we'll try to communicate through all the different Facebook groups and webinars like these.
Awesome. And then one other plug for the trends and some things that we've added is actually Leo was working on a project to give you guys some more info in those weekly emails that you get on Sundays. We're getting the topic requests from parents. And what happens there is, if they don't see any search results, then they can enter in manually those topic requests for elephant shrews or what have you, and it will be attached to their age. But now there's another section in the email with search terms. And Leo, would you tell us a little bit more about what that looks like?
Yeah, so this is something else to, I guess, like let everybody know, or kind of give teachers insight into what parents are actually searching but not able to find, right? So we took a look at all of the different search terms that they used whenever we saw that they weren't able to like find any results on Outschool, and then make them essentially available to you guys, just so that you're aware of like what are parents searching for that we currently don't have a lot of, right? So you'll see, I think it's around 10 the most popular terms that don't return results are going to be showing up on that weekly email going forward.
Is there an example of a topic that you know? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to get creative and think of what is so interesting.
We saw crochet, actually. Yeah. And there are some teachers offering crochet, but it's kind of a smattering of ages and times, and some teachers who don't have any time scheduled. So that's another plug to make sure you schedule at least one section for all of your classes, but also, we're not saying that we don't have crochet courses. We're just saying we need more options for parents.
Yeah.
Right. And some of the other examples are like guitar, Roblox, dyslexia. Like you can definitely reference the email so that you can see the full list, but yeah.
Cool. That's exciting.
Cool. And then warrior cats.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we
are
warrior cats. That's awesome. I'm sure we already have so many of those classes available. It's just being able to be discoverable and having those terms in your description.
Yeah.
Summary description. So, even if for example, dyslexia, you don't have to make a class just specifically for that, but if your class is a great fit for learners with different needs, you can start listing some of those.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And then another plug was for there's a graph that we showed teachers that shows the matching between sections that are available versus parent searches. Could you talk a little bit more about that one?
Yeah, so this one is very similar, right? So instead of saying like specific search keywords, it's saying like what times are parents searching for that they're not finding like sections live for, right? So that's another one like that you'll find.
It's on the sections page, right?
Yeah, it is on the sections page. Essentially, like I think the hyperlink says something around the lines of like need help picking a time, and then there you'll find it's on the teacher side.
Oh, I think I'm blocked because I'm not an approved teacher.
Oh, Julie.
I know.
Well, we can send that. I mean,
Yeah.
you can find that around, and we can post it in the comments.
Mhm.
Where to find that.
Absolutely. And then Karen was asking, thanks for getting another question before we wrap up. Have you had a deluge of new courses proposed, or is there still a need?
Yeah, so this is a good question. So for the most part, all the different terms that we posted have a lot of demand, or like they're the most popular ones that don't have as much supply, essentially, right? So I think like they will continue being on there. We are going to be updating them on a weekly basis. So essentially, like, you know, if you see that it continues being in the top 10, then there continues to be demand for it.
Cool, yeah, and it's new for us, so we're monitoring and seeing if there's any ways that we can make it more useful for you too. But we're hoping that, you know, just knowing can be really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Great, so thanks for asking, Karen. And then before we sign off, I want to pass over to each of you. If you could have one tip that you could give to teachers or one takeaway from this webinar, what do you think it would be? And, you know, just no limits. What's the one big tip that you have? And maybe Bianca, you look like you might have something.
First thing, I think the biggest takeaway from my end is word of mouth and sharing your story. I think it's intimidating to promote yourself as a teacher by posting different classes, but we're going to be posting those classes and marketing those classes through our emails. But if you can help us spread the word by sharing your teacher journey, I'm really excited to see how many families we can reach by that.
Great, thanks so much. Leo, what's your one big tip?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know that I can pick just one. But the one I'll say for now, and then maybe I'll say another one later, is it really going back to, like, I guess something that Bianca mentioned earlier, right? It's like think like a parent, right? Like whenever the parents are the ones that are making the decision to actually buy the course, right? To like click into the course if they see it. So the idea is to make sure that you're creating your description, you're creating your title, you're creating your summary in a way that's really going to speak to them and, like, you know, hook them to actually purchase the class. So I think, like, just really going back to that as you're crafting, you know, everything on your, you know, class listing is making sure that you're thinking of them. And obviously, like, you know, the parent is going to be considering the learner, right? So, like, you also have to think about that aspect as well. But
yeah, we're so grateful for all your ideas that you guys share daily in the community, and even just sending us ideas through support, because we're all collecting those and working hard to bring those ideas to life.
Awesome. Well, we're going to wrap up. I want to say thank you so much, Leo. Thank you so much, Bianca. And thank you all the teachers who came, whether you're watching live or watching the recording. If you're a little bit late, we're going to post the recording to YouTube in just a few hours here after it's done processing. So you can go ahead and tune in there. And again, subscribe if you'd like to. And we'll share in the Facebook group. So if you want to continue the conversation or have other questions there, feel free to go ahead and post. We'll make sure that you get answers. If you're not in the Facebook group, you can always email support@outschool.com, and we'll be happy to answer questions, take your ideas, or do anything else that you want. So thank you so much for tuning in, and talk to you later.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Julie.
yeah, thank you, Julie.